So we learned a lot. We learned the difference between John the Baptist, because they thought that John the Baptist maybe was the Messiah, and they were trying to figure out who he was. And he had to distinguish and say, hey, I am not the Messiah. Like, the one that is coming, I can't even untie his bootstraps or untie his sandals. So I'm not even good enough for that. So that really humbling, John was kind of he was saw by a lot of people like a crazy person out in the wild, right? Out in the wilderness, just living off the land kind of thing. And he would go from place to place and people would follow him, and he would just go and stop and start just preaching about who was to come. Hey, there's someone coming. You need to all pay attention, right? So this has been going on for thousands of years, us trying to tell everyone what is to come. So, first sign, this is coming. One of the first miracles that Jesus brings us. Also remember in the book of John, or the Gospel of John, that this was done after, this was written after that it happened. Because you got to remember, Matthew, Mark, Luke was all being written as it was happening. So if you've ever watched like the Chosen, if you've ever watched The Chosen, you remember watching Matthew, and Matthew's always writing stuff down, right? But so is John. But John doesn't actually put it into this gospel until after it had happened. So John chapter 2. On the third day, a wedding took place in Cana of Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding as well. When the wine ran out, Jesus' mother told him, they don't have any wine. What has the concern of yours to do with me, woman? Jesus asked. My hour has not come. Do whatever he tells you, his mother told the servants. Now, 6 stone water jars had been set there for Jewish purification. Each contained 20 or 30 gallons. Fill the jars with water, Jesus told them. So they filled them to the brim. Then he said to them, now draw some out and take it to the head waiter. And they did. When the head waiter tasted the water after it had become wine, he did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. He called the groom and told him, everyone sets out the fine wine first. Then, after the people are drunk, the inferior. But you have kept the fine wine until now. Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee. He revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum, together with his mother, his brothers, and his disciples, and they stayed there only a few days. And you hear that again, his mother and his brothers, because Jesus had human brothers, right? Mary continued to have children after Jesus. The Jewish Passover was near, and so Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple, he found people selling oxen, sheep, and doves, and he also found the money changers sitting there. After making a whip out of cords, do you guys hear that? Jesus went into the temple and he found all this stuff, and he made a whip out of cords. This is savage Jesus. So Jesus made a whip, he drove out everyone out of the temple with their sheep and oxen. He also poured out the money changers' coins and overturned the tables. He told those who were selling doves, get these things out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a marketplace. And his disciples remembered that it is written, zeal for your house will consume me. So the Jews replied to him, what sign will you show us for doing these things? And Jesus answered, "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it up in 3 days." Therefore the Jews said, "This temple took 46 years to build, and will you raise it up, and how will you raise it up in 3 days?" But he was speaking about the temple of his body. So when he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and the statement Jesus had made. And while he was in Jerusalem during the Passover festival, many believed in his name. And when he saw the signs he was doing, Jesus, however, would not entrust himself to them, since he knew them all. And because he did not need anyone to testify about man, for he himself knew what was in man. And that was chapter 2. So you saw a little bit different Jesus, not the fairy tale, what do we want to call it? The bluey version of Jesus. It wasn't the sweet cupcake Jesus. This was what I like to call savage Jesus, the one that had that righteous, I guess you would call it righteous anger to go into the temple, and he laid down the law, right? So, these first couple chapters are, I know I probably have repeated this many times in the readings, in the videos that I had, and as well as the live streams with you guys. When you read the Bible, stop trying to find yourself in the Bible and use the Bible as a way to find God's character. That is the most important thing you could ever do, because when you can find God's character, you can see how much he cared about us. Those are the things that we find in us. When you're trying to seek justice, right? Just like Jesus, he went in there, he saw what they had done to the temple. So he went in there, fashioned a cord, and whipped them all out of the temple because he knew it was wrong. And sometimes we want to feel that way, right? A lot of people put ourselves in this place that, you have to understand that you were made in the image of God. So some of the feelings that you feel, Jesus felt when he was here as a man in the flesh. So you have to give yourself a little bit of grace sometimes. So that was chapter 2. So we still have 3 chapters to go, but I feel like it's going really fast, guys.